So I'm Emily Howlett, and I'm a partnership specialist at Vocal. So we're based in Greater Manchester, and we aim to bring people and health research together for everyone's benefit. But I'm also the programme manager for the Greater Manchester Research Engagement Network, or the GM-REN. So before we get started today, we've just got a few housekeeping items. So today's session is being recorded, so do turn your cameras off if you prefer. Everyone's microphones will be off by default, so you don't need to worry about any background noise. If you type any questions you've got in the chat box at any time, we do have a Q&A session at the end of today, so we will come to those. And any links or QR codes that we mentioned today will be available in a follow-up email where we will share the slides as well. So as you heard last time, if you came along to webinar 1, this charter, it's more than just a document. It represents a shared commitment to building trusted, impactful and mutually beneficial relationships between researchers, research organisations and the voluntary community, social enterprise or VCFSE sector, and with members of the public. So the charter is not a static checklist, but instead it's designed to inspire researchers to think differently about what's possible, to be truly inclusive and ensure that everyone has access to research opportunities. But importantly, it's also about empowering VCFSE organisations, community leaders and the public to know what to expect from research. It's about creating clarity and confidence in how we work together, so that these partnerships feel fair and respectful and transparent. So next slide, please, Joanna. Great. So the Research Charter sets out 5 pillars of key principles for best practice of respectful research. So over the course of 5 webinars, we're introducing you to these key principles that VCFSEs and researchers told us were needed for equitable, meaningful and sustainable partnerships. So for anyone who missed webinar 1, that recording will be made available next year when we launch the GM-REN website in early 2026. And in the following 4 webinars, you'll hear from a number of different community voices who are going to tell you about how the Charter is already making a difference to their work and how they're embedding it into practice. So we're inviting you to sign up to the Charter and think about how it applies to you in your work, how it makes research that works for everyone, and build partnerships grounded in respect, trust and mutual benefit. So I'm now going to hand you over to Sue Wood, who is the Ops Lead for the Applied Research Collaboration in Greater Manchester and also the GM-REN Programme Lead. So over to you, Sue.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you for everybody that has joined us today. My name is Sue Wood. I am Head of Operations for the Applied Research Collaboration, which is one of the research infrastructure in Greater Manchester and part of the Research Engagement Network team. If you joined us last time, you will have heard from our other research engagement co-leads, Charles Kwako-Odoi, who is Chief Exec Officer for the Caribbean African Health Network, who explained why the Greater Manchester Respectful Research Charter will make a difference to communities, and from Dr. Gertrude Wafala about how communities experience research now and about the collaborative approaches we took to co-developing the Charter. We also had a summary of the different Charter pillars, so as Emily has said, please do go back and have a listen to that if you missed it. So this webinar, we are looking at 2 of the pillars because they are very closely linked together. Pillar 1, which is about community leadership, and Pillar 3, which is about embedding research in communities. So I'll summarise very briefly what I said last time, just around what we mean when we talk about community leadership. So next slide, please, Joanna. So Pillar 1, we're talking about doing meaningful research that matters most to the people it is about and for. When we talk about community-based research, it's about more than just involvement. It's about building ongoing partnerships that make research meaningful and driven by real community needs. We take time to understand before we even start talking about research, and that means partnerships with community organisations and groups who can help us connect and listen, and working to align research priorities with lived experiences and those with greatest needs. In this, the power dynamics really matter. We acknowledge and address the imbalance between researchers and communities, especially those who are vulnerable and marginalised. We have active involvement being key, and you will hear about this shortly with our community partners. It's about helping shape research questions, study design, implementation, interpretation of results from findings. And in short, we do research in ways that people say are important to them. Setting out clear expectations together. And we go further, inviting communities into leadership, governance, and decision making while tackling barriers that keep people out. And this isn't just a one-off. We create mechanisms for feedback, long-term partnerships that adapt as needs change. We invest in community organisations with the expertise to lead, and we make sure those who have been missing from the conversation get the support that they need to take part. Next slide, please, Joanna. And in doing so, we are embedding research into communities, developing long-term relationships between researchers and communities, fostering trust and collaboration for future projects. Respectful research isn't just about one project, it's about creating long-term relationships that foster trust and deliver mutual benefit. That means ongoing dialogue, honest, transparent communication, feedback loops that keep communities involved. We know that historical experiences can create barriers, so open conversations are essential to bridge that gap. We also invest in people, community champions, and embedded peer researchers, recognising their expertise and rewarding their time as equal partners in the research team. The same goes for voluntary community, faith, and social enterprise sector organisations who play a vital role in connecting to communities in greatest need, and they deserve recognition and resources. We also value community assets, funding venues for discussion, supporting local spaces, making research accessible in the places where people live and feel comfortable. And finally, we take a coordinated approach across research teams to avoid overwhelming some communities while leaving others behind. It's about balance, respect, and partnerships that last well beyond any single project. So what we have done is invited, I'm going to hand you over to Beatrice, and Beatrice is going to have a conversation and is going to lead the next section and is going to explain some of the ways in which we have done this and some of the kind of examples. So I will hand over to Beatrice. Thank you, Beatrice.
Hello everyone, my name's Beatrice and I'm a third year medical student. I've been with ARC for like 4-ish years, and I've been working as part of the young person advisory group, and then I saw my dad doing work as a community connector and then did some work as a community connector as well. So today I'm just going to be hosting a sort of talk show with the rest of people that are on here. I'll let them introduce themselves as well. So I'll just start with Nazreen and Amina.
Yes, hi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so very much for hosting us this morning. Really appreciate it. So we'll do a quick introduction first. It might get a little bit noisy because we've got a coffee morning going on downstairs. My name is Nazreen. This is my very dear colleague. She'll introduce herself, Fahmina. We're from an organisation called Awakening Minds, and we specialise in supporting South Asian communities from marginalised backgrounds and also new and emerging communities within the Rochdale Borough. So that's just a little introduction about ourselves. Over to you.
I'm Fahmina Parveen, and I work with my esteemed colleague Nazreen, doing the same things.
Yeah.
And then Reverend John.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Beatrice. My name is John. Many have known me as a team member of Caribbean and African Health Network, but I've since then moved on and been ordained as a minister. I'm a priest with the Church of England. I now work with the Diocese of Manchester and within the parishes of St. Clement, Armstrong, and St. Mary's David Hume. So I am honored to be here because I was part of the team that had this charter in place, but I'm happy the charter has come to find me in the community now where I am. So I would be happy to share what the charter now means for us as people in the communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Very wonderful introductions there. Thank you so much. So to start off, I've also got a timer, so I'll just let you lot know that I'm going to be timing everyone just to make sure that we get through everything. To start off, can we just start by, telling everyone like your role as a community research champion? Would any of you like to share an example how you've acted as a research champion in the community and, what impact it's had on the community?
Yeah. Fahmina, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say yes. We did a project with a company, and it was time sensitive, and they needed the South Asian community. So they spoke to our organization because we're in the community, we have the trust of the community, and so they were kind of feeling us out of when they could do it because being time sensitive, it was also Ramadan. So because being Ramadan, we had to make it relevant to our community. So Nazreen came up with we kind of negotiated that it'd have to be around this time. You'd have to take a break for praying, then we'd have to take a break for breaking up the fast and just kind of having a community event. So making it something that's around Ramadan at the same time. They're getting something at the same time as we're getting something. So it was beneficial both ways. So that was one of the things that we did do. Again, we had to have appropriate food, and they had to come to us. So we had to make our community feel comfortable. And as you know, when people are comfortable and they're safe, they tend to be more open. And so I think we did a really good job of that. And not only did they have fantastic communication with us, not only did they have fantastic participation from our community, but they came back and they gave us feedback. They came back and they said, this is what we learned, this is what we recorded. They played the recording. Again, we did the same type of setup, which was we fed everybody, we had the community together, they came to us, so we were at home basically. And on top of that, it was, the community felt that they were heard, they were seen, they were validated, and that their opinion mattered. So the feedback that we got afterwards was, oh, when are you going to do the next one? Count me in. They were like raring to go and be part of research all over again because it was done so respectfully. It was done according to them, and the organization respected their values, their principles, and it's just things like that that make all the difference.
Yeah. And we love that because I agree, you did such a wonderful job. You were literally like the connection between the researcher and these people. They were literally looking at you so that you can relay what they expect from the researcher, which is really good. What about you, Nazreen?
So yeah, just to add on to what my colleague Fahmina has said is, I just want to share the importance of our people and us. We are very protective of our community, and we didn't have to go to them. They came to our setting, our village. Rochdale is a beautiful village. This is where God lives. So they actually came to us. And that in itself is an honor. And sometimes it's not written or captured in reports of the importance of meeting people where they are. I don't think it's often presented in a way of how much that is a value and a commodity for all of us. So yeah, my experience exactly similar to Fahmina's here in terms of community engagement. But that was pillar one, where you build the relationships. So I'm going to talk about pillar two. I was this is long-term leadership relationships where we came into situations and circumstances where I'm now actually on governance tables, strategic boards, and when I speak, I actually feel like they listen to me. They stop and they listen. And I remember my very first initial meeting I went to, and it was a very high level meeting. I kid you not, Beatrice and John and Femina, when I say I was so nervous, I was so out of my depth. I thought, God, they're going to say something. I'll probably have to pull out a dictionary to understand it. And I just felt as though I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. But then this is where the benefit of one-to-one relationships. So the ladies who was looking after us, for example, Sue, Anila, Joanna, Nikki, they were all supporting us throughout the journey. So some of them were present when I was there in the meeting. And the very high level meeting began, and I had so much to say, but I kept making notes. I kept making notes because I knew it wasn't my time to speak. And when I finally did speak and I was given an opportunity to speak, I felt the direction of the whole meeting change. And I cannot tell you, Beatrice, how important that made me feel. And for once, I thought, God, I don't have to shout that much anymore because somebody's actually listening. And this is just one tiny example of how we embed long-term relationships. And they contacted us and maintained relationships, even when they didn't need to research us, even when there wasn't a project, even when they didn't have to do a report, just to check up on us and check in. And I think this is where family comes in, because that's what families do. And this is an opportunity for us to become a family of something larger and to be heard. So that's my experience, one of them anyway, Beatrice.
100%, because we've all had that moment where you're in an area and you're like, what am I doing? What is this? But then we need someone to make us feel welcome, someone to make us feel comfortable to speak out. And I think that's really essential, as you said. What about you, John? Any example of how you've acted as a community research champion?
Yeah, I would say this in two ways. One of them, I should begin with appreciating the fact that we've met quite a number of researchers, and myself as a community champion or connector, it has been kind of a two-way. We have received researchers and told them how we should come to the communities, and the researchers have accepted to adjust the ways, like my colleagues have said. It's not about them inviting us community members to go where they are, but also accepting that they, as researchers, can come to the community. And where we are as community champions, we have already developed trust, which they come and ride on top of that because the community will trust them where they find us. I always quote situations where we have had to come and visit places which we felt the communities preferred. For example, churches. We have invited researchers and they have come. And we have seen through this charter explaining to them that communities are tired, they're exhausted of some of these things, the way we see questionnaires and things like that. Sometimes we have to change. One of the times the Ascension Church, we had to start with drawing and ended up in poetry. And we ended up, but in the process, the researchers knew that this is another innovative way of collecting research, but listening to us, community members, that sometimes members are exhausted with the different ways because they fear questionnaires, the way data is going, but you begin with drawing and things like that and poetry, and at the end of it, data is being collected and people develop confidence in that. We've seen, my colleagues have attested to this, changing of food, eating African food instead of sandwiches, and if that's what the community requires and it helps in entry into the community, we as community champions have suggested this and they have been adopted and has helped in a way of developing and bringing in people in the communities, especially researchers. We have also seen issues of accepting members and looking at targeting the leadership first within the communities, because there are structures within a community, there is also a community. So we have also given them those communities to look at first of all, and we lead them in there to make sure that they appreciate that. So it has been so good. Even in venues, they have visited research, I mean churches and things like that. But that is in embedding. But in terms of leadership, I don't know whether I still have time to share where I have really taken on opportunity to lead. Is
I
it?
mean, we'll get to that. We've got so much more questions.
Oh, great.
I
Thank you.
think it falls under one of the questions.
Yeah.
But regardless, I agree 100%. As I said to Femina, we need the connections between you. You're the people that are connecting the researcher and, the people that we're talking to. We need those connections to be able to make the people comfortable and be able to open up to the researchers. We've talked about trust, and Nazreen talked about trust and like building and keeping the trust. But can we like talk more about that? Like how do researchers do that? Like how do VCFSE organizations, how do they create the trust and like links with the communities? Any ideas from any one of you?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is communication. Be transparent.
Hmm.
Researchers, when they're coming to us, I mean, realistically, researchers have only this amount of time. They can't research every community, know their nuances, know what they'll be offended by this. This is where we, as community connectors, as community organizations, grassroots organizations, come into it. We've spent a lifetime in this community. We've spent a lifetime part of the community. Now we serve the community. So we know the nuances. And so by coming to us, having dialogue, being transparent, telling us what you need, how you'd like to go about it, and then we will give you our opinion on, okay, this is going to work, that's not going to work. So having that partnership and having that dialogue and the communication, I think is utmost important. I think that would be one first things I would say is the most important thing is communication.
100% communication is key as well. I agree. Nazreen,
I'd like to, I think I'll give you a live example. We actually are undertaking a listening thread survey, not a survey, a workshop, a project at the moment with ARC. It's part of the ARC 2 project. And this is to actually build and create new researchers from within the community who don't see themselves as researchers, probably don't understand that research is embedded within us, that we are actually strategic within our own lifestyle on a daily basis. So I'll just give you an example. We've engaged through Anila with the very trusted relationships, meeting on a regular basis with the leaders of these ladies where English isn't their first language. So that's one of the key things is how we present and share information. So Anila very kindly simplified all the information, had many one-to-one meetings with this person until they felt confident and comfortable enough to, yes, I can deliver this workshop. And I think the key thing for me here is the first workshop was a simple question is what do you feel research is? Just it was a very simple question. And
yeah.
then as the day unfolded and how we took the input, and with this particular group, Anila presented some colors and crayons and felt tips and say, okay, draw what you feel research is. And we walked away with so much intel from there because not everything can be put into words. Not everybody has the language to express what they want to. And then I think the other thing is the leaders they're all from the faith Muslim community. So they presented examples from our holy book on how each one of them were researchers in their own field, in their own manner and their own setup. So once they presented that story from a researcher's lens, all the ladies in the room who were all faith-based, like, oh, we've never seen it like that before. And that was the aha moment of long-term growth where these organizations are here to help us. In that one moment where our confidence in the room went shotted sky high, the respect they had, the empowerment they had. The following week, they were here 10 minutes before, early. They were here ready to learn. And these are just simple examples of how effective this charter, if and when it is actually put into place, how powerful it is, and where hard work isn't necessary. It's only the heart work. Oh my God, I got it in.
Yeah.
I got it in. The hard work is necessary.
A little tagline.
Yeah.
Tries to get in.
That was quite good.
That was really good.
And then the most important thing is equal partnership. I'm sure, John, you will agree to this, is how important it is for our people to be valued for their time. It may not be a lot of money for people, but the way the climate is right now, every penny counts and every pound matters.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure, John, you've probably got some wonderful experiences.
Yeah.
You share some of your experiences, John, because I know you shared so many with your youth groups, didn't you?
Yeah. Thank you so much. At one time, one of the researchers we met in the community, and she was struggling, says, how do I get young people? The condition she was researching on was psychosis. And she says, I've engaged other groups, but I'm missing out these particular African ethnicities within this particular research. How do I get them together? Because they are not doing well in terms of this very health condition. and said, but we have struggled, we have failed. Said, okay, because Anila introduced the researcher, and I picked on this researcher and said, we have built trust in the communities. We have these groups in the communities. We can go and visit them and mobilize them. And these trusts were built way back when I was still working with the Caribbean and African Health Network as a community engagement officer. And which groups did we go to visit? We decided to go and visit the Congolese communities. As we said, within a community, there are smaller communities. So we went and visited the Congolese communities within Manchester, and they had their days they meet, and we went and visited them. We met the Ugandan communities within Manchester. For them, they preferred we meet them in the church. And within the Congolese communities, we went there and they had their monthly meeting and they were eating food and they were dancing and there was music and we had to dance. We met the Ethiopian and Eritrean communities in Salford, and for them it was over a cup of coffee, very strong coffee we must have. It was another one again. And we met Ghanaian communities in the churches, we met Nigerians, we met Zimbabweans, and Kenyans, and we ate michomo, nyama choma, and things like that. But the truth is, out of this, we met parents who knew us before. And these parents, because African communities are very protective of their children, the young people we wanted are between 18 and 24. But still, the African communities were protective of them. The truth is, they told us these children are working to make money. And if you want, you must compensate for their time. And we spoke to the researchers, and the team accepted to compensate the time, which is very important. And we got these young people. Of course, I also had to get use of a young person who is Beatrice here to go with me, because when we got there, they gave us the young people, but the community is different from that point, because the young people, their behavior, their culture, things, and it is about social media and things like that. So we also had to get them on board. But the truth is, there was that respect. They were fed when we got them into the room. We had 2 successful workshops, and we had 27 out of the 30 that were required. And out of this success, I must say that we sat down and said we need to write and notify the public about this. And we agreed to write reports. We wrote reports independently with the researcher. And the researcher took a back position and says, now, John, you have to take lead here because you led this. And I was part as of the people that wrote the reports, and we agreed to approach BMC to have this paper published. And I must say that to me, as a community member, I was recognized. I was turned now today when I engage with BMC. I'm a co-author, and I now engage and I know how to engage with journals now, not as a community member. And one of the things I must tell you that I struggled with when we got feedback from the journals, from the reviewers, they were asking, must we have a community champion as a publisher? And these are some of the issues we were struggling to explain. And we had to convince them that why not? Because if a community member has taken leadership, the truth is we were quoting this charter and said the community we live in has developed a charter which is saying they give them leadership. It is about the community to lead now. And so we can't, so the charter is a very important document here because we
I agree.
quoted it and said it gives us the leadership and the recognition. And they were asking, must these people be paid? They were saying maybe it compromises the data that is being collected. We said the times have changed. People have to be compensated for their time. So this charter has been a very important document to an extent that we have quoted it within these journals, BMC, to accept and they publish. I've shared always the link of our publication in the BMC, but this is because of this charter. Thank you so much.
I mean,
Thank you. That's
sorry, I was just going to say, just to what John said, going about how important this charter is. We were approached by a local organization, Touchstones, and they wanted to do something with us. And because it was not, I'm not going to say convenient, but it wasn't to what our community, the way we were used to working and how we need our community to, it wasn't working around our community, basically. That's the word I'm saying for. And Nazreen just pointed out to the lady we were speaking to is, you need this charter. And we actually picked up, we got up the picture, we showed her it, she said, well, send me it. Well, you need this. If you tick each of these boxes and then go to the community that you want to speak to or you want to work with, and you've ticked these boxes, you're going to get them to come and work with you because you are using this as your guideline. So it's, that charter is very, very important. And I think not only should we as a use it here, but other organizations should use the same thing, I think.
I agree 100%. That's some really wonderful experiences you've shared there. Things like communication is important to build the trust, transparency. I mean, Nazreen, you mentioned putting yourself in the shoes of the people you're talking to. If they're faith-based, maybe relate it to their faith, and then maybe they can be like, oh, okay, I can see it from this point of view. It was really good experiences you shared there. I love them. And then John has touched on these, but I'd love to talk about the community venues that researchers use. Like, why is using community venues for like doing research activities so important? Like places where people frequent more. Why is it important to use places like that?
I think it's to make people feel safe and comfortable, because you're going to get a lot more out of people when people are comfortable. They're surrounded by something familiar and it's not out of the ordinary for them. So it's got to be the safe factor. They feel safe. They know this is a safe space. We've been here. We know it. These people are safe, because the researchers that they're talking to, they're meeting them for the first time. So that everything else has to be that they're comfortable and that they feel it's a safe space, that they can say what they've got to say, but they're in their environment at the same time.
Do we still have time, Beatrice?
Yeah, it's okay, don't worry.
Good. I'd like to add on to Fahmina's point in terms of spaces. I'll give you an example of a recent research project we've been. I'm so sorry, our phone's ringing. A recent project that we were involved with. So somebody from the Manchester University reached out and they needed to interview 4 families from the South Asian communities, particularly from the Pakistani Muslim background. Those people who live with long-term pain and they manage long-term chronic pain. Now, this was like, okay, Nazreen, can you engage? We tried really hard. It was extremely difficult for, number one, people to come forth and say, okay, yeah, you can have my data. It was like, why are you going to listen to me? Why do you want my information? Why should I share it? Nobody's ever asked me before. Why does it matter now? So we had a whole array of barriers. And then we had ladies where the interview was from the person who lives with chronic illness and also their 3 family members. Now, as you can imagine, it's a very personal request. So there was 2 options. They could come to my office and we could all have the interviews here with the doctor, or if that doesn't work for you, you tell us what works for you. So we left it open. And all the families came back and said, we know what's convenient for us. We'd like the doctor to come to our house where we feel safe, where we feel comfortable, where we don't have to set up anything. We don't even have to dress up. We don't have to struggle to make sure we have to go to that person. So we then engaged with them, and lo and behold, we organized it so strategically where the researcher contacted the families individually on a one-to-one and arranged a time, a day, which was appropriate for that family. And then because it was done so using the charter, step-by-step guide of the charter, within 1 week, we managed to secure 4 interviews of 4 families, and it was absolutely phenomenal. That wouldn't have been possible if we stuck to, we need you to come to our office on such and such a time, on such and such a day, you have to be all available. It wouldn't have happened. Because another example where sometimes it just doesn't work, I'm going to give you this example. We had a researcher who needed to interview people from the Pakistani community who live with kidney issues, any sort of renal concern. And for the love of us, they were just not willing to talk to us. They were not willing to talk to anybody. And for us, that's a red flag. It's like, why? Why has nobody spoken about this? Why is our community so reluctant? After 4 months of trying, nobody was willing to talk. They were willing to tell me that, yes, we live with dialysis or we have these complications, but I don't want to talk to somebody else. We immediately realized this is not the time to take it to another level. However, we have started building those relationships in the hope that come next year, we are building such relationships, give them the trust, the safe, and empower them to say, yes, Nasreen, we're actually ready to be asked. And this is sometimes where sometimes it just doesn't work, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes this charter, there's no time limit, like Sue said on this charter, that within so many months or so many weeks, this has to be implemented. You can move from one pillar to the other to the other. There is no set order, there is no set time, and there's no set limit. But what is said, what is set, is the respect that goes with it and the trust that goes with it and the simplicity. Because that research was only possible because the researcher who went looked like them, spoke like them, had the same faith as them. So
Yeah.
most of the conversations don't have to be discussed because they understand each other. I think that's one of the most important things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely spoke too much there, Beatrice.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's a point that needed to be made.
It's what we need to hear, Nazreen.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Leaving it open is so good. Like you have to ask them and let them just know what they want. And then I feel like that was a really good approach in your example there. Love that as well. Just 5, 6-ish minutes before we can go to Q&A. I wanted us to talk about setting the priorities for research. Any ideas of how do we or the researchers involve communities in deciding which research research priorities, and like what are the benefits of like co-developing a research? I know John's already touched on it, but any like more ideas, any more detail that you can share?
I want just quickly tell people about us getting to know that this charter is a two-way.
Yeah.
What we are presented is one way right now so far. The
Yeah.
truth is there are some misconceptions within the communities. So as community champions, we are helping the communities also to understand. For example, that project on psychosis, we have had feedback. Even those who participated, the young people who participated, have gone back and they have given feedback because these are mental health issues. African communities don't accept, like men, don't accept that there is a mental health problem. You accept, then you are not a man. But as community champions, we have now gone back to these communities and we are telling them, researchers are telling them that these are realities and you have to drop your misconceptions. So as community champions, this charter is helpful because it is also giving the community feedback to drop what is not good. So it is important for
100%.
us to look at this charter in that way, that as community members, there is a two-way link. It helps as we work within the communities. So it is important.
Yeah.
I've seen one of the questions I know we shall be addressing, and is the issue you are highlighting, that communities
Yeah.
do now, it's the high time we engage community members in inquiring from them as you develop the protocols so that you get to know the
Yeah.
kind of community that will give the data that you are looking for.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
100%. What about you two? Any opinions?
I was gonna say, being part of the research really helps. Like, going on what John says about the two-way street. I was involved in a project where they did a questionnaire about primary care, and we were involved from the inception, which was of discussing about the questionnaire, knowing what questions we wanted to ask. So we were part of the whole discussion. So we went through all the discussions, we decided on the questions, we went through the ethics committees, everything like that. Then we actually then delivered the questionnaire to our communities and what we did, and then we brought it back. We're now waiting on the feedback on that. But I found it really, really interesting that when we were doing the questionnaire and we were doing it in English, certain questions, what they call the questions when they ask them how old you are and
Demographics.
thank you. I was getting that wrong. So the demographic question, like there were questions, and when we were doing the practice, because we were practicing, and I was saying it in English, and I was doing it in English, flowed really beautifully. But when I came back to my community and did it in my language, there was one question, and it knocked me for. And in my mind, I was translating it until I thought, oh, I can't translate that.
Oh no.
Oh my God! I'm like, somebody's going to be offended so much. But
I know.
when we did the research, we did everything. Even, I was there, I was present, I was representing my community. It didn't click until I had to
Yeah.
physically think about the question and translate. And what I did was I just modified it and went across like that. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to the charter. If we're part of the research from the beginning, we understand the researcher and the researcher can understand us. And then as a partnership, we're more stronger. And just
Mm-hmm.
that little nuance, because I remember giving the feedback to the person I was feeding back to and saying, oh, that question. And it was just something nobody thought about. Yet there was 3, 4 of us from the Asian community in those meetings.
Yeah.
Yet it never clicked to anybody until we had to actually physically do it.
Yeah, you're literally right. I promise you, anyone that speaks more than one language will agree with you. It's direct translations don't usually
It just don't
work like the
translate
way
well,
they
I'll
do.
tell you.
Yeah, literally. Um, Perfect. Any other opinions, and then we can just go to one more last question before Q&A.
What's your last question, Rita?
Okay, I was gonna talk about like long-term relationships. How do we stay? Because we've talked about trust. But any tips to researchers? How do we stay in connect? Like, how do we stay connected between the projects? Because some researchers do one meeting and then like 6 months later they have another meeting. But how do we stay connected between projects, and like what strategies can they use?
I think considering designing the protocols, and when sometimes people write grants and things like that, there is need to get consideration to make sure there is sustained communication between the communities where they are doing the research and them and the projects that they have designed. Because sometimes it's not about getting the data and you go away. It is important to give feedback and to say, maybe out of this data, we published this paper and this is where it is. This is the link. It's right now, people can access that information and they also verify what was captured really. So sustaining this relationship is important in terms of respecting, as the charter is telling us, we need to be part of the way they are designing the project, the way they are writing the grants. I can give an example of that particular project I told you about. There are many others that we have seen. We had challenges as well in terms of the young people were facilitated, they were given, their time was compensated. But the parents, we visited them and there was no budget. We spent Ugandan community, I was with you, Beatrice. First of all, these communities, the parents spent over 2 hours,
Yeah,
including feeding us who were taking, they fed us, we ate food, we made,
I know.
but they were asking, now, how about us? The truth is the researcher did not take care of these parents. But the communities in the African communities, you will never get the young person until you go through the parent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will not get the rapport you need and the data you need. So being part of the design of the protocols, of the grants, of things like that is important so that people will tell you the roadmap. Thank you so much.
May I add something, Beatrice, to John's point? I think it's absolutely important. I think the question is very important of what can researchers do to embed these long-term relationships. I think they carry on doing what they have begun to do, which is taught to us as people, as humans, and the involve emotions within this, involve
Yeah.
feelings, because I think it's important to understand that it's not easy for researchers as well. It is very difficult. We're used to engaging with our community. Sometimes you'll have people who all they want to do is be listened to. You might ask one question and you've probably got an essay or probably a year's worth of stories not there. And sometimes it's very difficult for a researcher as well because they're there for one particular reason. They're restricted on time, they're restricted on their resources, and it does become challenging. But this is where long-term relationships are so powerful, where they come back and keep sharing with us the wins, the highs, the lows, and also the things that didn't work so well in order to share or hear or ask for somebody else's concerns, feelings, and vulnerabilities, you need to be able to share your own vulnerabilities and say, this is one instant where, you know, what we implemented didn't work. And that's okay too, because that gives you the human factor. And I think it's important somehow where we work together as VCSE organizations. Another thing that keeps the relationships so rich is each other. When I listen to you, Beatrice, when I listen to John and I see you on events and meetings and I hear you lot and I see your growth, it feels like we've grown. It doesn't feel like John's grown or John's part of a paper. I feel like we're part of a paper. We are for once recognized, like, oh my God, we are doing something.
Because we become a community.
It's the we element of it, of how important that is. And when I hear John and yourself, Beatrice, when you come back and say, this is my experiences. I remember one particular thing that you mentioned, Beatrice, on one of the events is when you had the youth who were going to take part in some sort of research, they asked, what do I have to wear? I don't know what to wear. And it was such a simple thing. That's something, you know, 10, 15 years ago, we would say that. Oh my God, I don't think I've got the attire to go to meet and let alone speak. And it's simple things like that. And that always touches my heart, thinking, God, I was there one time because we didn't feel good enough. And I think this is an opportunity where our lived experiences and connections with our relationships and our people has allowed us, we feel like we're finally on the map. Oh my God, we're finally on the map. Yeah. John, we're on the map, my friend, and you, my friend, are on some published papers. I mean, how cool is
It's
that?
true. And the truth is, if the researchers are finding any challenges, make good use of the community systems. These champions can help you explain those challenges and say the truth is there was no budget, whatever provision for this, and the information will be given and you will have access because usually these structures are believed in because the trust was built. They will know that that was what it is.
I agree, 100%. Well, thank you so much to you three. You've done a great job. We've done a great job.
Yes, well done, Beatrice.
Perfect. It's time for Q&A. There's 10 minutes left for Q&A. I'll just pass on to Sue.
Thank you. And thank you, Beatrice, Naz, Femina, John. That was absolutely brilliant. I could sit and listen to you for hours. And, you know, the whole sense of we, you know, it is a partnership. And we're so grateful for the partnerships that we have been able to develop. So I think if we could just bring everybody back onto the screen. There aren't many questions in the chat, but if you want to put some more in, please do feel free. And I'm going to hand over to Emily, who will navigate any questions that come through.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you to everybody. It was brilliant. So we've got a question in the chat here that says, how can we reach out to community research leaders? Specifically, what can we be included in the research protocol? So John, you touched on this a little bit, but didn't know if all the speakers would like to add a bit more to that.
Yeah, I don't mind. I'm on all my audios there. So I think what can you do to keep the relationships going and how do we embed them? So, for example, now NIHR, Health Innovation Manchester, ARC, all these organizations have worked with us and the Manchester University as well. I'm assuming and I'm hoping there is a database of trusted VCSE organizations who've had experience with research. And I think this is where talking to each other and say where, for example, there may be a research on CVD from the South Asian communities. And if you combine and connect with each other, you will identify the likes of us and through us, many other organizations and VCSE organizations as well, through us who can engage with a wider audience. So yeah, just keep in touch, give us a call, drop us an email.
Simplify it, just
drop us a WhatsApp mail, just talk to us.
That's it.
Yeah, for me, I just want to add that, yes, we said as community champions, as community connectors, we are available to do and help and support the researchers. But we also need to agree that we are talking about the charter. The charter has the answers for all this. When you look through the charter, when you read that charter, it will guide you on what and how to deal with the communities where we get the data from and what to do after you have collected the data. The charter has all these answers, honestly. Thank you.
Beatrice, anything from yourself? Any reflections?
I agree with the two, Najrin and Femina. Just, just drop us an email or like just contact us. We're ready to help or give like advice on how to help.
That's great. Thank you.
Emily, may I say something, my friend?
Of course. Now
Yeah.
we can go.
So there's a question or a comment from Amy. Amy from the and it's very powerful. In fact, it made me think of what about those people who are stuck in the middle as a lived experience lead with projects where the budgets are set without understanding the need for this investment in time, and then we can't do it. What the project really intends to do, and we can't stick to our values. Really tough moral situations that occurs time after time. That is so powerful. It touched home. And we can understand and relate to your circumstances, Amy, because there are often situations and times in the very early beginning, before the charter existed. Give you, for example, COVID happened, and Stephanie was doing a COVID research, and we needed to speak to people and listen to their experiences. And for the love of us, nobody was willing to talk to us. There was COVID restrictions and everything. Yep. I tried to really engage with people backwards and forwards. In the end, it turned out where I had ladies who said, right, we're going to have a coffee morning or a coffee evening with our ladies. Just ring us then because our husbands aren't home and men are not in the house. Just call me, Nazreen, call me. Like, hello, that's my family time. But we knew how important it was to have a feedback where they felt safe to share things. And it didn't necessarily work for what we originally intended to, but we got a lot more out of it. And I think, Amy, I just want to reassure you that the budgets don't always work, but if you keep trying and ask the right people and you work with the right organizations, we will find budgets, because sometimes this partnership working is where important. You have a project, maybe you have an X amount of budget and you're working with our organizations or organizations which are similar to us. We can approach our local funders and ask them to match fund or part fund something where sometimes you don't realize what you need to research until you get there. And that's another example of how research questions do come from our communities.
Absolutely.
Because when we do take it to them. So yeah, Amy, don't give up, my friend.
Yeah.
Come to us.
Communication, talk it through.
Yeah.
There'll be a solution always, because you bounce off ideas from everybody, as many people as you talk to. And if you're talking to Nazreen, you'll get 15,000 ideas. You talk to John, myself, Beatrice, whatever, you will get something, and we will bounce off ideas. And that's the best thing about this relationship between community organizations, community champions, call them what you want, and the researchers is it's a dialogue. It's a two-way street. We're not setting our ways and say, oh, you have to pay us. No, we're open. We're here. We've always been here. Come find us.
We're not lost, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't need to find us. We know where we are. But I want to add on to something onto that point in terms of Amy's comment is, John, I'm sure in your experiences, and Beatrice, you've experienced where we've done so much research, we've done so many projects, and we've not, forget our people being paid, we're not paid.
Yeah.
So money is never always our number one concern.
Priority,
Our passion, our compassion, and being validated and being seen and heard, that's our number one concern.
Absolutely.
So even if you don't have money, Amy, come to us, my friend. We're always there to support.
Of course, some of us, the motivations is not money, especially us who are in between there. If money is there, I would be the best person to grab it. But the motivation in this one is not money. Because for me, from my church, it's busy enough for me to be there. But the truth is, I have the passion for the community and I have the passion for research.
That's it.
And I've seen this. And there's a lot for us. We also benefit in terms of engaging with different researchers every now and then. We are learning some of the health conditions that we live with, so in between there, the motivations is not money. So don't focus on the budget. Come engage with us. We know the communities and we shall lead you there. And we talk. It's important because the charter is there and guides us to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. I see Uzma Asif, you have your hand up. Is it okay if we allow Uzma to ask or
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anne.
You can unmute yourself when you feel like it, Uzma. There you go.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all of your contributions, very inspiring. So I'm not sure if it's going to be relevant to everyone who's here, but it's about my particular project. So I'm a senior lecturer at MMU, at Manchester Metropolitan University. I work in the education, School of Education, so I train teachers, teachers. So my project is looking at using our alumni, so women, South Asian Muslim women who've already become teachers through us, using them as ambassadors to mentor our current students. So it fits with obviously the university's KPI targets and EDI targets and things like that. But it's actually driven through my own lived experience as belonging to that group. So what I want to do is to kind of reach out to other organizations and bring that in. And I'm also at the stage, it's very conceptual at the moment. I'm looking at funding, and also how can I bring this work out into the community, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is to try to keep women like me in that pipeline.
Thank you very much for your powerful question, Uzma. I think this is something maybe you can take up with Sue and Emily later on, but since you're in the very initial stages, I would advise you to use the charter and make sure you budget it correctly, because sometimes you don't realize the what can happen and what can occur in expenses. So do budget your time and the people's time very carefully, and also come and talk to us. Come to us. You know, you can do a Zoom online meeting with John, with Beatrice, and all of us, and share and listen to our experiences, how it works, and how also maybe with our own trusted relationships, you have a reach of accessing these participants that you want, and also once you put it out there, maybe we need to reword the question of how we ask them. I don't know. Maybe we're getting something right. Maybe we're getting something wrong. But do budget it carefully, though. And do ask us for our experience. We'll be more than happy to help, Uzma.
Thank you so much. How do I contact you, by the way?
You come through our agents. Sue's our agent. I think we're going to say we've got an agent now.
She does take 10% though. She's very strict on that.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm not paying, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm sure Sue and Anila and Emily will have give you some further guidance from that, Uzma.
All right, brilliant. Thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah.
That's great, thanks. And also, Lucy's just put in the chat there about some upcoming PPI workshops that might be interested in MMU as well. So do take a look at that also. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to hand over to Sue just to close the meeting. But thank you everyone for your questions. And thank you so much to all our wonderful speakers.
We took all your time. We talk all your time. Yeah.
John is sharing some screens. So just to let you know that there are 3 more webinars. Keep joining the conversation. I think the one on the 10th is really important. It's about how do we create those mutually beneficial relationships, making sure that funding is in place, but it's more than funding, as John and Naz and Femina have said. So how do we create those partnerships? But we're going to be talking about respect for community values on the 14th of January and accessible approaches on the 27th. So please do sign up if you haven't signed up to those already. Next slide. And just again, thank all our speakers for today. You've been absolutely fascinating listening to you all, and for all the preparation that you've put into this session. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Beatrice, Naz, Femina, John. And there are some ways of connecting with people. Research for the Future is our local database. We've got Bridge Research Network. Have a look at that, because again, that is trying to connect researchers with voluntary sector organisations, and the National Be Part of Research database. So do take some time to have a look at these when you get the slides through. So thank you very much. We are out of time, and hopefully we will see you all soon on the next one. Thank you.